There are moments in life when you realize you're no longer in control, that decisions have been made for you, about you, without you. My moment arrived on a rainy Tuesday in October, when my father walked into my room without knocking and announced that I was getting married in 3 weeks. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. Ashton Reed, he said, as if the name should mean something other than a life sentence. It's the best solution for everyone. The war needs to end, Kennedy. You understand that, don't you? Understanding and accepting are two different things. But I learned a long time ago that as the daughter of Marcus Walsh, leader of the East Coast Walsh family, my voice was purely decorative, pretty in theory, irrelevant in practice. Ashton Reed. I knew the name, of course. Everyone did. At 35, he had transformed the Reed family into one of the most feared and respected forces in the American underworld. Smart, ruthless, and, according to rumors whispered at high society criminal gatherings, completely heartless. In the 3 years of war between our families, I had never seen him in person. Only grainy photographs and dossiers my father left on the table, surveillance images where he was always a silhouette in a dark suit, his expression unreadable. Now, he would be my husband. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was 26 years old, with 2 European university degrees I'd never used, fluent in 4 languages that didn't matter, and zero say over the one decision that would truly define my life. The wedding took place at a neutral property in Connecticut, a sprawling stone mansion surrounded by security from both sides, each watching the other with hands too close to their weapons. The ceremony was cold, efficient, a contract sealed with empty vows and champagne no one really tasted. I wore a Vera Wang dress that my mother had chosen 5 years ago before she died. It was the only thing that day that felt like mine. The rest, the white and red flowers, the string quartet, the forced smiles, belonged to someone else. To a Kennedy Walsh who accepted her fate with grace. When Ashton Reed entered that makeshift chapel, the air shifted. He was taller than the photos suggested. Broad shoulders beneath a flawless charcoal gray suit, dark hair slicked back with military precision, a chiseled jaw shadowed by a studied 5 o'clock shadow. But it was his eyes that froze me, a deep amber, intelligent, and utterly impenetrable. He looked at me once, a quick, disinterested assessment before looking away. In that moment, I understood. I wasn't a person to him. I was a solution, a signature on a contract. The vows were mechanical. My voice didn't waver. Years of etiquette training had ensured that. His was low, controlled, without a drop of emotion. When he slid the ring onto my finger, his fingers were cold. When the officiant said he could kiss the bride, Ashton hesitated for a fraction of a second before leaning in and pressing his lips to the corner of my mouth. Fast, formal, like greeting a business associate. There was polite applause, the flashes of hired photographers. My father and Ashton's father shook hands for the first time in 3 years, and I watched money and power being reallocated in real time. No one asked me if I was okay. Our wedding night was in a luxurious Manhattan penthouse, neutral territory like everything else in this marriage. The silence in the car was suffocating. Ashton stared out the window, his fingers tapping lightly on his knee, ignoring my presence so completely that I felt invisible. When we arrived at the penthouse, all glass, marble, breathtaking views of a city that never sleeps, I expected. I don't know what I expected. Maybe conversation, maybe hostility, maybe the kind of cold consummation I had mentally prepared myself to endure. What I didn't expect was rejection. Ashton poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed me one without looking me in the eye, and said in a voice as cold as the ring that still felt foreign on my finger, "This marriage is political, Kennedy. It doesn't have to be degrading for either of us." It took a second for me to process. "What? You heard me." He finally looked at me, and there was something weary in those amber eyes. "I'm not going to touch you. Not like that. Not because you were forced to be here." I should have felt relief, and I did. A massive wave of it that made me realize how tense I had been. But along with it came something more complicated. Shame, rejection, confusion. So, what? We live as strangers? We live as allies. He finished his whiskey in one gulp. We show up together when we need to. We maintain appearances. But your life is yours, and mine is mine. It was generous, in theory, respectful. But there was a coldness to it that cut me in a way I couldn't name. "There are 3 bedrooms in this penthouse," he continued. "Already heading for the stairs. Choose whichever one you want. Good night, Kennedy." And just like that, my wedding night ended alone, in an immaculate guest room, still wearing my wedding dress, staring at the ring and wondering if being invisible was better or worse than being used. The following months established a pattern. Ashton and I were the perfect couple in public. He'd rest a hand on the small of my back at events, introduce me with cool politeness, and offer a faint smile when necessary. I played the elegant wife, designer dresses, superficial conversations, a mysterious smile that hid the emptiness. At home, we were ghosts. Silent dinners where he read reports and I pretended to be interested in my food. Mornings where we'd pass in the hallway with a nod. Nights where I'd hear his footsteps upstairs and wonder who this man was, sleeping 3 doors down. He was never cruel, just absent, polite to the point of being painful. And me? I adapted. I smiled on cue. I wore the mask of Mrs. Reed. I pretended that being married to a stranger who treated me like expensive furniture was normal. But 3 nights a week, I escaped. 3 nights a week, I got to breathe again. The sapphire was my secret. Not the kind of secret you keep out of shame, but the kind you protect because it's the only thing that still belongs to you. An exclusive nightclub tucked away in a discreet building in the meatpacking district, where Manhattan's elite went to forget their names and their responsibilities for a few hours. I danced there as Kenna. Never Kennedy Walsh, never Kennedy Reed, just Kenna. And 3 nights a week, I was free. It all started 6 years ago, before the war, before Ashton, when my best friend Harper Wilde dragged me to a contemporary dance class at a hidden studio in Brooklyn. Harper had always been the rebel I was too afraid to be, tattoos hidden under silk blouses, a laugh too loud for high society standards, and bright green eyes full of a zest for life that I envied. "You need something that's just for you, Ken," she had said, pushing me inside the studio. "Something your dad can't control." She was right. Dancing saved me. Not in a dramatic way. No one was physically hurting me, but it saved me from the slow suffocation of being a decorative piece in someone else's life. In the movements, I found a voice. In the music, I found a purpose. On the stage, I found the Kennedy I could have been if I'd been born into a different family. When the war started and my father locked me down even more, Drake Sullivan, one of my father's most trusted guards and my friend since I was 15, became my accomplice. Drake, with his 6'6" frame, tribal tattoos on his forearms, and unwavering loyalty, saw me as the younger sister he never had. He helped me escape, creating alternate routes, distracting other guards, lying for me. "Your dad will kill me if he finds out," he'd always grumble as he disabled alarms. "Then don't let him find out," I'd reply with a smile he could never resist. After I married Ashton, I thought I'd have to give up the sapphire. I thought the surveillance would be too tight, that the Reed guards would follow me every second. But Ashton didn't care. He barely noticed my absences. When I'd casually mention I was going out for the night, meeting Harper, a charity event, any vague excuse, he'd just nod, his eyes already back on his endless documents. So I continued. And Drake kept helping, now with more care, more elaborate planning, because it wasn't just the Walsh family who could catch us. It was the Reeds, too. On the sapphire stage, under amber and purple lights that turned everything into a dream, I wasn't anyone's wife. I wasn't a mob boss's daughter. I wasn't property sealed in a political alliance. I was movement, emotion, life. My specialty was contemporary dance with sensual elements. Never vulgar, always artistic. Fluid movements that told stories without words. The sapphire. Audience was sophisticated, businessmen, artists, people who understood the difference between sensual art and cheap obscenity. I danced in silk dresses that moved like water, with bare feet, my hair loose, so different from the elegant chignons and Louboutin heels of Kennedy Reed. In the music, I poured out all my loneliness, all the silent rage, all the desire to be seen as more than just a last name. Harper always watched from the front row, shouting encouragement that made me laugh in the middle of a performance. Autumn Pierce, the owner of the Sapphire, a woman in her 40s with a mysterious past and a huge heart, treated me like a daughter, always making sure I had the best music, the best slots. "You have something special, Kenna," Autumn would say, her brown eyes serious. "Something people need to see. Don't waste it." I didn't plan on wasting it. It was the only thing that still made me feel human. Ashton started to change around the 3rd month of our marriage. Nothing dramatic. Just small things I noticed because I spent my days studying the crumbs of attention he gave me. He started asking about my day. Not long interrogations, just, "How was your day?" as we served dinner. I always answered vaguely, "Fine, nothing new," and he'd nod. But there was something in his eyes that seemed to be actually listening. He stopped leaving immediately after dinner. Sometimes he'd stay, slowly sipping whiskey, flipping through a book. The silence between us was less hostile, almost comfortable. One night, as I read on the living room couch, he came in and simply sat down in the opposite armchair. He didn't say anything. He just opened his own book and read. We stayed like that for an hour, two strangers sharing space without words, but somehow less alone. Another night, I came back late from the Sapphire, adrenaline still pulsing through my veins. I found Ashton in the kitchen, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, making a sandwich with the ineptitude of someone who has always had chefs. He looked at me, and for the first time, he really saw me, not the performative Kennedy Reed, but the me who had just escaped 3 hours of freedom, hair still damp from a quick shower in the dressing room, eyes bright, a smile I hadn't been able to completely erase. "You look happy," he said, and there was genuine curiosity in his voice. My heart pounded. "I spent the night with Harper. She always makes me laugh." An easy lie, but something in the way he looked at me, as if he were trying to solve a puzzle, made me feel exposed. "That's good," he said finally. "Everyone needs something that makes them happy." And then, for the first time, he smiled. Not the political smile he used at events, but something small, genuine, that completely transformed his face. For a second, I saw the man under the armor, and my stomach did a strange little flip. "You need something like that too," I said before I could stop myself. The smile disappeared. He went back to his sandwich. "Good night, Kennedy." And just like that, the moment passed. But something had changed. Some tiny crack in the wall between us. It was Drake who noticed first. "Your husband's been acting weird," he said one night as he drove me to the Sapphire. "Weird how?" "Observant." Drake looked in the rearview mirror, professional paranoia. "He's asking questions about you, to the guards. Nothing obvious, but he's paying attention, more than he did before." A chill ran down my spine. "You think he suspects something?" "Something." Drake parked at the Sapphire's back entrance. "Be careful, Ken. Men like Ashton Reed don't leave mysteries unsolved." I should have listened to the warning. I should have been more careful. But that night, on stage, under the lights that transformed me into someone else, I lost myself in the music as I always did. I danced with everything I had. Each movement a silent confession of everything I couldn't say with words. I didn't see the man in the private booth in the back. I didn't see the amber eyes that watched me with an intensity that would have frozen me in place. I didn't see the moment my husband discovered my secret. He came back the next night. And the next, and the one after that. I didn't know. I kept dancing, kept living my double life, kept believing I was in control. But Ashton Reed was studying me, unraveling every layer, understanding the woman he had rejected on our wedding night. And something in him was changing too, something dangerous, something neither of us was prepared to face. The first clue that something was wrong came at dinner. Ashton and I were sitting at the mahogany table that felt too big for two people. He at the head, me to his right. The formal arrangement we maintained even when no one was looking. He cut his steak with surgical precision while I pushed risotto around my plate. My mind still at the Sapphire, at the performance the night before where I had debuted a new choreography. "You dance?" The question came out of nowhere. My head shot up so fast I heard my neck crack. "What?" Ashton didn't raise his eyes from his plate. "Dance. Do you? It seems like the kind of thing women with your European education would learn. Classical ballet, maybe." My heart was racing, but my face remained perfectly controlled. Years of practice. I learned a little as a child, nothing serious. He took a sip of red wine and finally looked at me. Those amber eyes seemed to see right through me. Too bad. It would be interesting to see you dance sometime. There was something in the way he said it, a layer of meaning I couldn't decipher. My stomach twisted. Maybe someday, I replied lightly, returning to the risotto I couldn't swallow. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken things. After that night, Ashton started making small changes to our arrangement. He started showing up in the living room when I was there. He sat closer during our silent dinners. His hands would brush against mine when passing documents, when reaching for the same wine bottle, accidental touches that lasted a second longer than necessary. One morning, I found a gift at my bedroom door. A black box, no card. Inside, a pair of dance shoes. Not the pink ballet slippers, but black canvas ones, flexible, professional. Exactly the kind I wore at the Sapphire. My blood ran cold. He knew? How could he know? I held the shoes with trembling hands, searching for a message, an explanation. Nothing. Just the shoes and the silent implication that came with them. That night at dinner, I casually mentioned, "Thanks for the gift." Ashton cut his salmon without looking at me. "I don't know what you're talking about." But there was a ghost of a smile at the corner of his mouth, and I knew he was playing a game with me, a game whose rules I didn't understand. The tension between us became almost physical. At social events, his hand on the small of my back burned through the fabric of my dress. When he leaned in to whisper something appropriate in my ear, "Smile, we're being watched," or "The man to your left is an informant." His warm breath on my skin made me shiver in a way that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I found myself watching him too. The way he commanded a room just by walking into it. How his suits fit his broad shoulders perfectly. How, on rare occasions, when something genuinely amused him, a wrinkle would appear at the corner of his eyes. One night, we came back from a particularly tedious event, some charity gala, where we had to dance a formal waltz. Ashton had held me with a respectable distance, but I could feel the contained strength in his hands, the heat of his body so close to mine. In the penthouse elevator, we stood in silence. I could see our reflection in the polished metal doors. Two beautiful, unhappy strangers trapped in a gilded box. "You're a good dancer," he said suddenly. I looked at him. "You sound surprised." "I am." He turned to face me, and the space in the elevator became suffocating. "You've surprised me a lot lately, Kennedy." There was something in his voice, something rough, almost vulnerable, that made me forget to breathe. We were so close. If I leaned in just a few inches. The doors opened. The moment broke. Ashton stepped out first, loosening his tie, and I stood there, heart pounding, wondering what the hell was happening to me. Harper noticed the change immediately. "You're different," she said one night after my performance at the Sapphire. We were in the dressing room. I was still barefoot and sweaty. She sat in the makeup chair watching me with those two perceptive green eyes. "Different how? I don't know. More," she gestured vaguely. "Present, but also more confused. What's going on with you and the Lord of Darkness?" "Don't call him that." "Oh, wow." Harper leaned in, eyebrows raised. "You defended him. You never defend him." "I'm not defending him, I sighed, running my hands through my hair. "It's complicated. Complicated like I'm developing feelings for my arranged husband. Complicated? No." The denial came too fast. Harper just smiled. Liar. Maybe she was right. Maybe something was changing in me too. Something I wasn't ready to name. Something that scared me because men like Ashton Reed weren't for feeling. They were for surviving. Everything started to fall apart on a Thursday night, 3 weeks after the gift of the dance shoes. I was on the Sapphire stage, lost in a particularly intense choreography, movements that expressed loneliness, suppressed desire, all the tension that had been building between me and Ashton with no outlet. The music was slow, sensual, and I moved like liquid fire, every gesture a confession. I didn't see the drunk man approach the stage. I didn't hear his vulgar words until it was too late. I finished the performance to applause, sweat running down my spine, my breath coming in short gasps. As I was coming off the side of the stage, the man, a new customer, expensive suit but eyes clouded with alcohol, intercepted me. "You were incredible, babe." He was too close, invading my space. How much for a private night with you? Drake was already moving from the door where he was watching, but I held up my hand, stopping him. I could handle this. Dealing with drunk men was part of the job. This isn't that kind of establishment, I said firmly, trying to get past him. Please go back to your table. He grabbed my wrist. Don't be difficult. Everyone has a price. Let go of me. My voice was ice, but he was too drunk to notice the danger. Come on, sweetheart, just a drink. She said let go. The voice came from the shadows near the back exit, low, controlled, but carrying a threat so palpable that the room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. My blood ran cold. Ashton. He emerged from the gloom like an elegant storm, black suit, tie undone, hair slightly disheveled as if he had run his fingers through it repeatedly. But it was his eyes that froze me, deep amber burning with a cold, murderous fury I had never seen before. The man let go of me immediately, stumbling backward. Hey man, I was just being friendly. Ashton moved so fast I barely saw it. In 1 second, he had the man by the throat against the wall, his forearm pressing down with controlled but unmistakable force. You touched my wife, Ashton said, with terrifying calmness. Give me one reason, one single reason, not to break every bone in your right hand right now. My wife. The words echoed in me like an earthquake. The silence that followed was so dense I could hear my own heart beating. The drunk man was pale, his eyes wide, finally sober enough to understand he had made a potentially fatal mistake. Drake had already positioned himself strategically, blocking the view of other customers, while Autumn discreetly gestured for the security guards to keep everyone away. But all I could see was Ashton, my husband, here, at the Sapphire. He wasn't looking at the man he held against the wall. He was looking at me. Those amber eyes burned with something far beyond rage. There was possessiveness there, jealousy, and something deeper I couldn't name, but which made me feel exposed in a way no performance on stage ever had. Ashton, my voice came out raw. Let him go. Why should I? His voice was dangerously soft, still not taking his eyes off me. He touched you, he disrespected you. He's drunk and stupid. He's not worth it. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. The fact that I was asking for mercy for a stranger instead of letting my husband defend my honor as the codes of our world would dictate. Slowly, Ashton let go of the man, who slumped against the wall, coughing. Get out, Ashton ordered without even looking at him. And if I find out you've said one word about tonight to anyone, you'll wish I'd finished you here. The man stumbled away, Drake rudely escorting him out. The music had stopped. The few people who had noticed the commotion were whispering to each other, but Autumn quickly had the DJ resume the music, and the security guards dispersed the curious. And then we were alone. Ashton and I, in the side hallway of the Sapphire, under dim lights that made shadows dance on his face. You knew, I said, finally. It wasn't a question. For how long? Ashton slid his hands into his pockets, a gesture that could have seemed casual if not for the tension in his shoulders. 5 weeks. 5 weeks. All that time, he had known. The questions about dancing, the shoes, the strange looks, it all made sense now. Why? My voice was trembling, and I hated it. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you confront me? Because I needed to understand. He finally took a step toward me, and I instinctively took a step back. Something hurt in his eyes. Because I spent 3 months treating you like an obligation, like a problem I solved with a ring and a last name. And then I saw you here. He gestured vaguely to the stage behind us. I saw you dance, Kennedy, and I realized I didn't know anything about you. The woman in my apartment, polite, quiet, perfectly behaved, was a mask. But here, his voice grew hoarse. Here, you're real. Here, you breathe. Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them down. So you watched me, like some kind of secret voyeur. Yes, he didn't deny it, didn't apologize. Every night I could. I sat in that damn booth and watched you be the person I never let you be around me. You rejected me, the words came out before I could stop them, raw and painful. On our wedding night, you made it clear I was nothing to you. Just a last name you needed to do business. I know. Ashton ran a hand through his hair, frustrating it even more. And I was an idiot. I thought I was Being noble, respectful, I thought not touching you was the right thing because you had no choice in being there. But the truth. He took another step. This time, I didn't back away. The truth is I was scared. That stopped me cold. Ashton Reed, the man who commanded a criminal empire, who negotiated with authorities and rivals without flinching, was admitting to fear. Scared of what? Of feeling something. He was so close now I could see the golden nuances in his dark eyes. I built my life on control, Kennedy. Absolute control over every decision, every emotion. And then you showed up, this woman I was supposed to see as an enemy, as a tool, and something in me recognized something in you. My heart was beating so fast I was sure he could hear it. So I kept you at a distance, he continued, his voice low and intense. Because distance was safety, but then I saw you here. I saw the passion you hide, the strength, the vulnerability. I saw who you really are when no one is telling you what to do, who to be. He raised his hand slowly, giving me time to retreat if I wanted to. I didn't want to. His fingers brushed my cheek, wiping away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. And I couldn't stop thinking about you, how your body moves, how you smile at your friend when you think no one is looking, how you read on the couch with your feet tucked under you, how you take your coffee, black, no sugar, always in the same mug. Every word was a confession, every detail, proof that he had been watching me far beyond the sapphire. Ashton. My name for him came out as a plea, but I didn't know what I was pleading for. I know I don't have the right, he whispered, his thumb tracing my jaw. I rejected you, I ignored you. I treated you like a business contract. But Kennedy, look at me. I was already looking. I couldn't stop. I miss you when you're not home. I look forward to dinners because they're the only guaranteed moments I have with you. When you go out at night, I don't sleep until I hear you come back. His forehead leaned against mine, our breaths mingling. I'm in love with my own wife, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever felt. The world stopped. All the defenses I had built, all the walls that protected me from feeling anything for this man who had been forced into my life, they crumbled like sandcastles. You can't just say that, I whispered, my voice broken. You can't ignore me for months and then show up here, defend me like some possessive knight and declare feelings. I know I don't deserve it. Let me finish. I placed my hand on his chest, feeling his heart pounding under my palm. You can't say these things and expect me to be rational. Because I've watched you too, Ashton. I saw how you read the same books I leave in the living room, how you asked the chefs to make my favorite dishes without ever admitting you asked, how you put your jacket on the back of my chair in restaurants. Because you know I always forget a coat, his eyes widened slightly. I watched you pretend not to care when every small action of yours showed me otherwise, and I swallowed. I started to want you to look at me the way you're looking at me now. I started to wait for you too. Kennedy. So don't tell me you don't have the right, because I'm here, despite everything, wanting to believe you. Something broke in his expression, the last layer of control crumbling. His hands cupped my face with a desperate urgency, and he pulled me to him. Can I kiss you? His voice was rough, vulnerable in a way I never imagined Ashton Reed could be. Please, Kennedy, let me kiss you for real this time. I couldn't speak, I just nodded, and that was all he needed. The kiss was everything our wedding night wasn't. It wasn't polite or formal. It was desperate, hungry, full of months of pent-up tension and unspoken words. His hands were in my hair, on my waist, pulling me impossibly closer, as if he could merge me with him. I grabbed his suit jacket, rising on my tiptoes to reach him better, and he groaned against my mouth, a sound so unexpectedly vulnerable that something in me completely unraveled. He kissed me like a man lost in the desert, finally finding water, as if I were oxygen and he had been suffocating for months. His hands trembled against my face, and I realized this powerful, feared man was trembling because of me. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathing heavily, he pressed his forehead against mine again, his eyes closed. I don't deserve you, he whispered, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to. Ashton, look at me. He opened his eyes, and what I saw there both broke and healed me at the same time, fear, hope, desire, and something so profound it had no name. Stop punishing yourself for what you didn't do in the first few months. Start doing things differently now. A small, almost shy smile curved his lips. How? Take me home, I said, my fingers tracing his jaw. Our home. And this time, don't sleep in a different room. The desire that flared in his eyes could have consumed me. Kennedy. Unless you don't want to. He silenced me with another kiss, this one even more intense than the first. When he pulled away, there was a genuine smile on his face. The first real one I had ever seen. I do. God, I want to so badly it's killing me. He took my hand, lacing our fingers together. But not like this. Not in a dark hallway after a confrontation. When I touch you, and I am going to touch you, Kennedy, in every way you let me, it will be because you are absolutely sure. No adrenaline, no impulsiveness, just us. There was something profoundly intimate in the way he said that. As if making love to me was something sacred he didn't want to rush. Then take me home, I repeated, softer this time. And we'll figure out the rest together. Drake gave us privacy in the car. He drove in silence while Ashton and I sat in the back seat. Our hands laced, my body leaning against his. He pressed kisses to the top of my head every minute or so, as if he still couldn't believe he was allowed to touch me. Are you going to keep dancing? He asked eventually, his voice low. I looked at him, searching for judgment or disapproval. I found none. Do you mind? Only about your safety. His fingers stroked my wrist. What happened tonight can't happen again, but the dancing itself? He paused, his eyes meeting mine. You're beautiful when you dance, Kennedy. I would never ask you to give up something that so clearly feeds your soul. Tears stung my eyes again. You really have been watching me, haven't you? Every night I could, there was no shame in his voice. And I'll continue to, if you let me, but this time, not from the shadows. This time, as your husband. For real. For real, I repeated, testing the words. They felt right. When we arrived at the penthouse, there was a different kind of nervousness between us. Not uncomfortable, but charged with anticipation. Ashton kept my hand as we rode the elevator up, his thumb drawing distracted circles on my skin. Nervous? He asked when the doors opened. Yes, I admitted. You? Terrified. His smile was self-deprecating. I've commanded criminal organizations, negotiated with people who would kill for much less, and nothing has ever scared me as much as the idea of disappointing you. I stopped in the foyer, turning to face him completely. Ashton Reed, you just admitted feelings, defended me from an aggressor, kissed me until my knees went weak, and promised to respect me enough not to rush me. You literally couldn't disappoint me right now if you tried. He laughed, a genuine, rich, beautiful sound that resonated through me. You are amazing, you know that? I'm starting to believe it. I rose on my tiptoes, kissing him softly. Now, you promised not to sleep in a separate room. Are you planning on keeping that promise? The desire that darkened his eyes made me tremble. Every word. He swept me into his arms before I could process it, making me laugh in surprise as he carried me through the penthouse. Not to his room or to mine, but to the master bedroom, the one that sat between the two and that neither of us had used. The room that was supposed to have been ours all along. Ashton set me down beside the bed, but he didn't rush. Instead, he just looked at me, really looked at me, with a reverence that made me feel like art in a museum. You're so beautiful, he murmured, his fingers tracing my face. I've known it since the first moment I saw you walking down the aisle at that wedding. But I was so determined not to feel anything that I forced myself to look right through you. And now? Now I can't look at anything else. He kissed me again, but this time it was different, slower, deeper, an exploration rather than a desperate claim. His hands moved with a patient reverence, discovering every curve as if he were memorizing it. When my hands went to his tie, loosening it, he held his breath. Kennedy, are you sure? Ashton. I cut him off, looking directly into his eyes. I want this. I want you. Not out of obligation, not for a political alliance. Because when you look at me like this, I feel seen for the first time in my life. Something broke in him, the last bit of resistance, the last wall. Then let me see you, he whispered against my lips. All of you, forever. And that night, in the dim light of the room that should have been ours from the start, Ashton and Kennedy Reed finally became husband and wife for real. It wasn't just physical, though there was enough passion to set the whole city on fire. It was emotional, vulnerable, a fusion of two people who had been strangers forced together, but who chose, at last, to truly see each other, between kisses and reverent touches, between broken whispers and murmured promises. They discovered that sometimes the best stories start with the worst beginnings. And sometimes, the person you were forced to marry becomes the one person you could never live without. I woke up to sunlight streaming through the curtains that no one remembered to close the night before. For a moment, disoriented, I didn't recognize the room, the master bedroom, our room, which finally had a purpose. Then I felt the weight of an arm around my waist, the warmth of a body against my back, and everything came back in a wave of memories that made me blush down to my toes. Ashton, my husband, for real now. You're thinking too loud, his sleep-roughened voice murmured against my neck, sending shivers down my spine. I can practically hear the gears turning. I turned in his arms, meeting amber eyes that were still sleepy but infinitely softer than I had ever seen. Dark hair completely mussed, the 5 o'clock shadow more pronounced. A small, genuine smile. He looked years younger like this. Less mafia boss, more man. Good morning, I said, still processing that this was real, that he was here, holding me as if I were precious. Better than any other in months. He kissed my forehead, then my nose, finally my lips, soft and familiar in a way that a single night shouldn't have created, but did. Did you sleep well? Eventually, I teased, and his smile widened into something deliciously arrogant. Am I a terrible man for not regretting a single second of keeping you awake? A monster. I traced his jawline with my fingers. I'll have to seriously consider if I can stay married to someone so inconsiderate. He laughed, the sound vibrating through me, and pulled me closer. Please don't. I'm starting to really like this marriage. We stayed like that for a while, just existing together, memorizing this moment before the real world came back to demand our attention. But eventually, as always, reality came knocking. Ashton's phone vibrated insistently on the bedside table. He groaned, clearly tempted to ignore it, but finally reached to pick it up. His expression changed instantly as he read the message, the softness disappearing, replaced by the cold, calculating mask I knew so well. What is it? I asked, sitting up and pulling the sheet around me. Your father wants a meeting. Today. Ashton looked at me, and there was concern in his eyes. He knows. My stomach dropped. About the sapphire? Probably. Drake is loyal to you, but he's employed by your father, and there were a lot of witnesses last night. Ashton ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear. I should have been more discreet. No. I put my hand over his. You defended me. I won't let you regret that. He flipped his hand, lacing our fingers together. Your father isn't going to like that you've been dancing in a nightclub. Even less that I knew and didn't inform him. My father doesn't control my life anymore. There was more strength in my voice than I expected. Not completely, not anymore. Ashton studied me for a long moment, something like pride warming his eyes. You're different. You make me feel different. It was the truth. For the first time, I didn't feel like someone else's chess piece. We'll face this together. Together, he repeated, as if testing the concept. Then he nodded. Together. The meeting was to be held on neutral ground, an exclusive Italian restaurant that served as a traditional meeting spot for the families. I chose a dress with an elegant but conservative cut, my hair pinned up in an impeccable chignon. Good girl armor. But when Ashton saw me in the hallway, ready to go, he stopped. No, I blinked. No what? Don't wear that. He approached, his fingers already working on the pins in my hair, letting the strands fall in waves over my shoulders. And not that dress. Wear something you like, not something Kennedy Walsh would wear to please her father, something Kennedy Reed would choose. My heart squeezed. Ashton, you said we'd face this together. His eyes met mine. So be yourself. The woman I saw on stage, the one who sleeps with her feet tucked on the couch, the one who steals my whiskey when she thinks I'm not looking. I didn't know he had noticed that. Apparently, he noticed everything. I went back to the closet and chose differently, an emerald green dress that Harper had given me for my birthday. Less formal, but infinitely more me. I left my hair down, added earrings my mother had left me. When I looked in the mirror, I saw Kennedy for the first time in months. Not Walsh, not Reed, just me. Ashton smiled when he saw me. Perfect. My father was already seated when we arrived, Marcus Walsh in all his intimidating glory, his gray hair perfectly combed, a suit that cost more than luxury cars. Beside him, Chase Blackwood, his right-hand man and consigliere, watched me with an unreadable expression. Kennedy. My father's voice was cold. Ashton. We sat on the other side of the table. Ashton kept his hand over mine on the tablecloth. A small but declarative gesture that didn't go unnoticed. I received some interesting reports last night, my father began, ignoring the menus the nervous waiter brought. My daughter apparently has a secret career as a dancer in a club, and my son-in-law knew and didn't inform me. It's none of your business, Dad. My voice came out firm, surprising even myself. His eyebrows rose. You are a Walsh? I am a Reed now, I interrupted him, feeling Ashton squeeze my hand in silent support. And before I am any last name, I am a person. Dancing makes me happy. It's the only thing in my life I chose for myself. Choices have consequences. You represent this family. She represents my family now. Ashton's voice was cold steel. And in my family, Kennedy has the right to her own life, as long as she is safe, and I personally guarantee she will be. Where she spends her time is her decision. My father looked between us, and something in his expression changed. You two are actually together, he said, and it wasn't a question. This isn't just political anymore. No, Ashton confirmed. It's not. Chase leaned in, whispering something in my father's ear. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying us with the calculating intensity I knew so well. This complicates things, he finally said. Or it simplifies them, Ashton retorted. Two families united by more than just paper. Real loyalty, not just strategic. Real loyalty can be more dangerous. My father looked directly at me. If something happens to one of you, the other will become unpredictable, emotional. That is a weakness in our world. Or it's the greatest strength, I said. Because now, anyone who wants to hit you or the Reeds has to think twice. We are united. For real. Another long silence. Then, surprisingly, my father smiled, small but genuine. You've finally grown up, Kennedy. Your mother would be proud. Tears stung my eyes, but I kept them in check. Keep dancing if you want, he continued. But Ashton is right, safety is non-negotiable. And, he hesitated, a rare thing for Marcus Walsh. Maybe I should have let you choose more things in life. Maybe this marriage worked out precisely because neither of you allowed yourselves to be completely controlled. It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get from him. And surprisingly, it was enough. When we left the restaurant, our hands still laced together, Ashton pulled me into a side alley before we reached the car. He gently pressed me against the brick wall, his eyes glowing with something intense. You were incredible in there. I just told the truth. You stood by me, against your father, in front of witnesses. He kissed my neck, making me shiver. Do you know what that means in our world? That I'm officially insane? He laughed against my skin. That you chose me. Kennedy, you chose me. And he was right. For the first time, I had made a choice, not out of obligation, not for survival. For love. Always, I whispered, pulling him in for a kiss that promised exactly that. 3 months later, I was standing backstage at the Sapphire, adjusting the straps of my midnight blue silk dress, taking a deep breath to calm the nerves that never completely went away before performance. But this time, there was a difference. This time, I knew exactly who was sitting in the private booth in the back. Ready, darling? Autumn appeared at my side, a maternal smile on her face. She had become more than just the club owner. She was a confidant, a friend, the mother figure I hadn't had in years. Always nervous, I admitted. Good nervous. She squeezed my shoulder. That husband of yours is out there again. 3rd night in a row this week. I smiled, a warmth spreading through my chest. He says it's his new favorite way to decompress after tense meetings. He looks at you like a man who found religion. Autumn laughed softly. Go on, show him why he's a lucky man. The music started, something new I had choreographed myself. A slow, sensual melody that built in intensity. When I stepped onto the stage, the lights adjusted, and for a moment I just breathed, feeling the energy of the room. Then my eyes found the back booth. Ashton was leaning forward, elbows on his knees, completely focused on me. Even from a distance, I could feel the intensity of that amber gaze, possessive, admiring, and so full of love that it still surprised me every time. I danced for him, just for him. Every movement was a silent conversation. The way I arched my back was a question. The rotation of my hips was a promise. The extension of my arms was an invitation. I poured out all the emotion that the last few months had brought. The transformation from strangers to lovers, from obligation to choice, from emptiness to completeness. When the music reached its climax, I let my body express what words never could. Gratitude for him having seen me, for having the courage to feel, for having transformed a prison into a partnership. The last note echoed. The lights dimmed. Applause erupted throughout the club. But all I saw was Ashton, now standing, clapping slowly. That small, private smile he reserved only for me curving his lips. Later, in the dressing room, I was still removing my makeup when the door opened. Ashton walked in without knocking, a husband's privilege he exercised frequently now. You were transcendent, he said, closing the door behind him and approaching. Every time I think I can't be more fascinated, you prove me wrong. Flatterer. But I was smiling, turning in the chair to face him. Didn't you have important meetings tonight? I canceled. He knelt in front of me, his hands resting on my knees. I spent years prioritizing business above everything. Now, you are my priority. Always. My heart melted as it always did when he said things like that. The raw vulnerability of a man who had learned to feel again. Besides, he continued, reaching into the inside pocket of his jacket, I had something important to do today. He placed an envelope in my hand. I opened it, confused, and found legal documents. It took a moment for me to process what I was reading. You bought the sapphire. My voice came out strange, emotional. Technically, we bought it. Ashton watched my reaction carefully. I put it in both our names. Autumn is still managing everything. She's brilliant at it. But now you own the place that gave you freedom. It just felt right. Tears overflowed before I could stop them. Ashton. Hey, don't cry, he wiped my face gently. This was supposed to be a happy thing. It is happy, I laughed through the tears. It's the most thoughtful gift anyone has ever given me. How did you know? Because I know you. Simple, definitive. I see you, Kennedy. I always will. I pulled him in for a kiss that was gratitude and love and promise, all intertwined. When we pulled apart, we rested our foreheads together, breathing the same air. I love you, I whispered. It wasn't the first time I'd said it, but each time it still felt monumentally important. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. His thumbs traced circles on my knees. You've changed my whole life, Kennedy Reed. Weeks later, the real storm arrived. Not from my father or the Walsh family, but from outside. A lesser rival, Chase Blackwood, who had been too quiet for too long, made his move. He had secretly built alliances, taking advantage of the peace between the Walsh and Reed families to strengthen his own position. The threat came in the form of a coordinated attack, not physical, but financial and political. Frozen accounts, canceled contracts, authorities suddenly interested in investigating irregularities in both families' businesses. It was Harper who called first, her voice tense. Ken, I need to see you. Now, it's about Chase. I met her at a discreet coffee shop in Brooklyn. She slid a folder across the table, her green eyes serious. Chase is trying to divide you, she said. He's spreading rumors that Ashton is using you, that the marriage is still just political. He wants to create distrust between the families again. I opened the folder, altered photographs, falsified documents, elaborate evidence that Ashton had kept mistresses, that I was just a front. It was convincing to anyone who wanted to believe it. "Will this work?" I asked, but my voice was steady. I knew the truth. "Not if you show a united front." Harper leaned in. "But it's going to be a test, Ken. Of you, of the families, of everything." That night, I showed everything to Ashton. He studied the documents with an unreadable expression, his jaw tight. "These accusations are interesting," he finally said, his voice calm but sharp, creative, but fundamentally flawed, because they assume my marriage is still what it was at the beginning. He looked at me, and everything in his expression was public love, an unequivocal declaration. "Kennedy isn't a strategy. She is my partner, my equal. The person who made me remember that power without humanity is empty." He turned to the room. "Anyone who tries to divide us is declaring war not with one family, but with two completely united. And what's more, with me personally. Touch her, and there will be no place on this continent where you can hide." The silence was absolute. Then my father stood up. "My daughter chose well. The Walshes fully support this union, and any threat to the Reeds is a threat to us." Other families nodded. Chase realized too late that he had miscalculated. He had bet on division and found a fortress. Months later, the dust settled. Chase was dealt with, exiled, stripped of power, a living warning of what happened to those who challenged the Walsh-Reed Union. And Ashton and I? We continued to build our life. I still danced at the Sapphire 3 times a week. He still watched me from his booth, never missing a performance if he could be there. We ate dinner together every night, talking about everything and nothing. I learned his business, he learned my art. We became true confidants, passionate lovers, best friends. One night, lying in the dark of our room, truly ours now, filled with both of us, he whispered against my hair, "You know what's funny? I fought so hard against this marriage, against feeling anything. And now I can't imagine a life without you. You're my best accidental decision." I turned in his arms, my fingers tracing his face in the dim light. Not accidental, destined. It just took us a while to figure it out. "Destined," he repeated, smiling. "I like that." We fell asleep intertwined, two strangers who became soulmates, proving that sometimes the most unlikely stories become the most true. And if you asked me if I would change anything, the arranged marriage, the painful months of distance, the complications that still surrounded us, I would say no. Because every difficult moment led us here, to this, to us. And this finally was exactly where I belonged.